Welcome to Creative Piecemeal. I'm Tammy Takaishi, a board-certified music therapist. Join me each week as a new guest from across the fine and creative arts spheres shares struggles, triumphs, laughs, words of wisdom, and more in authentic, thought-provoking, and inspiring interviews. Hello and welcome to Creative Piecemeal. Today I am joined by one of my former professors and a good friend of mine, Erin Joyce. She is a wellness coach and she also is a yoga instructor and does Reiki. So I'm very excited to have her on to talk about mental health, wellness, creativity, and anything else that we end up chatting about. So welcome.
Thank you, Tammy. I'm so excited to be here and bonne soirée.
Bonne soirée. So I knew you from many years back when you were a professor at the university I went to and you taught French. But you have since pivoted, and I'm curious, how did you decide to make that pivot into being a wellness coach?
Well, there's a lot that went into it, and I think my big impetus for changing was higher ed is going through a lot of changes. And as much as I am still teaching French at a different institution. As much as I love teaching and I love working with young people, higher ed is just not the same as it used to be. And a couple of years ago, I said, maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time for me to look for something a little bit different. I'm not nearly old enough to retire yet. So how would I like to spend my last 15, 20 work years? And I've always been interested in health. Like you said, I'm a yoga instructor. And so I kind of gravitated towards that. And a lot of the skills that I use as a professor really transfer over to coaching. So it's just sort of a natural progression for me.
And I just remember your warmth and your compassion with teaching. And I can only imagine that it, like you said, it translates really well. And, I just loved having you as a professor. So I'm sure you're doing great things in the wellness world. So.
Oh, that's sweet of you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope so. I hope I'm doing well in the wellness world.
Were there any books that you read that sort of helped inspire or kickstart what you were doing?
Wow. Yeah. And my head is swimming with all the different books. I think actually what did it for me was when I was studying to be a yoga instructor, we read a lot of books. And so yoga, what we call yoga is really just a microcosm of what yoga really is. And it's a whole lifestyle. So some of the books that I read for that really kind of changed my life. And one of them I have right here. It's called The Yamas and Niyamas. And so this is part of it. And it's just sort of a code of conduct for how to live your life ethically. And that really, I think, changed my whole philosophy of how to deal with people. But so many books in the health. Christiane Northrup was one that I read a long time ago, Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom. I think that was one of the very first books about health and this was maybe 30 years ago that I read that book. That was really one of the first books I read on health that got me passionate about, exploring it further. But there's so many good books out there.
I know that especially in the music world, yoga, Alexander technique, all of those things are so great because, we use our bodies a lot. And I was wondering, for the creative people tuning in, how can people get started doing things, where doing yoga or Alexander technique or going to a wellness coach and, and dealing with the apprehension or maybe the fear of like, oh, I don't think I can do that, or I don't think I'm good enough, flexible enough, what have you, mindful enough, the ability to sit still, for example, what would you recommend for people if they want to explore that, but they're coming up against a barrier?
That's a really great question. And I think a lot of people have that, especially with yoga. They think, well, I'm not, I can't bend in half. And you certainly don't have to. How I got started was just finding videos on YouTube, and I did it at home. And so it was a little bit less intimidating than going to a class. But you mentioned mindfulness, and I think that's really what it's all about. So maybe just stop it. I like to do it before meals. And I'm not talking about praying necessarily, but just stop. Take a breath, don't think about what I have to do after lunch or, just sit here in quiet and just, maybe listen to music or, do something peaceful. And it just, those little mental breaks, I think, make a huge difference. And that's really what yoga is all about. So even just doing a couple of head rolls or some shoulder rolls, at your desk I mean, that's yoga. It's just making your body feel good and just being aware of, wow, my neck's really sore. I should do something about that. I mean, I think that's a great place to start, is just tuning into your body and what's bothering you, and then figuring out ways to sort of work with that.
Excellent. How has your life changed since you integrated yoga and those practices into your life? And then again, since you became a wellness coach?
It's changed quite a bit. So I had some sort of personal tragedies happen, and got in a really, really bad place. And this was about maybe 4 years. Yeah. So it was not during COVID, but like as we were on the tail end of COVID, I guess. So maybe 2021. I was pretty unhealthy and decided that I really, if I wanted to live a long life, I wanted it to be a healthy one. I mentioned my dad to you earlier, just seeing somebody in their 80s just not able to walk and with so many issues. I just thought, I don't want that to be me. So that's when I started doing yoga seriously, which led me to just adopt a whole new diet, no more alcohol. I've since gotten off of caffeine, trying to get rid of the refined sugar. So yoga really, I think, helped me tune into my entire health. And so not just my flexibility, but what am I putting in my body? How's my sleep? And, I'm very good about getting to bed at a certain time at night, waking up at a certain time. So it really changed I was pretty depressed, and it brought me out of depression. And like I said, it transformed my life. And that's what really made me decide to become a teacher.
I'm sorry that you had to go through tragedy, but I'm really glad that yoga was there for you and that lifestyle was there for you to bring you to this next phase of life.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, me too. It was pretty bleak. So yeah, it was just what I needed I had kind of dabbled in yoga for decades before that, but I hadn't gotten into it. I wasn't at the point where I was doing it every day by any means. And it just kind of, that depression really scared me. And it told me, you gotta, if you want to live, if you want to live a long life, you need to start doing some stuff now. And I did. I think I'm in the best shape of my life now at 50, almost 56. And it transformed everything for me.
That's great. That's great. It's always nice when we are able to overcome some really difficult obstacles, get over those mountains that seem impossible at the time.
Absolutely. I mean, it was and for everybody at that time, my husband died in 2019, and then COVID happened, and that, everybody was so rocked by COVID, and COVID caused a lot of damage, to people's mental health. And I think we're still not quite completely out of the woods. I think there are still some people struggling with, just getting back to life as normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a big event.
It really was. It really was. To pivot a little bit, what is something that you are proud of that you haven't already mentioned?
So when I did yoga teacher training, I said, I'm never going to teach yoga. There's no way. I'm just doing this to learn more about it. I love yoga. I want to learn about the philosophy and I never intended to teach. And then I started subbing a little bit when people needed, a sub. And then I started teaching, and now I absolutely love it. And so I'm really proud of the fact that I did that, even not knowing or not planning on teaching, which then caused me to become a Reiki master, and then has caused me now I'm in a 600-hour Ayurveda course, which Ayurveda is the sister science to yoga. And it deals mostly with health and wellness. So how to recover from disease, or how to prevent disease in the first place is the key. But so now I'm doing a certification in Ayurveda. So I'm hoping with my wellness coaching to integrate that, and then the Reiki and the yoga, and it's all just kind of coming together. And then the life choices that I've made, not drinking alcohol anymore. And I feel like this is all just sort of, there's a big synchronicity happening. So I'm really proud of pursuing all of these different areas of interest, and especially this isn't me. I mean, this is just like the universe making it all come together. But I had to be proactive in finding those outlets that would interest me in order to make this happen.
Excellent. And what a wonderful thing to have been able to do for yourself. Like I said, pulling yourself out of a difficult time and literally like blooming and creating something new.
Yeah, yeah, it really, I mean, things could have gone a lot differently for me. So, yeah, I mean, I'm thankful. I don't know what it was that, the universe telling me, you got to make some changes. And I did. And it's really paid off. But thank you. Thank you.
I know that, yoga and all of the wellness things has creative components to it. And I'm wondering what's one of your favorite parts about that and about teaching it?
I think I mean, and this was the case as a professor, coming up with a plan and thinking, all right, let's work on backs today, healthy backs. So what's a sequence that I can create where that all flows together well, that people of all levels will be able to do easily. So you might have people who are beginners, and then you might have people who've been doing yoga for 30 years in the same class. So how can I arrange this sequence so that the beginners can do it and the advanced people can do it, and that they enjoy doing it. And so knowing just how long, I mean, I think about this with music, just knowing how long to hold a note, or how long, how do you piece this piece of music together? I think it's very similar to maybe creating music or creating a piece of art. I think there's a lot of parallels.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking about the structure, the overarching themes.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And just making it accessible to everyone. I know you think about that with music. How are you're thinking about the people who are going to listen to this music, and how do you do that so that it reaches people and touches people? So I think it's very similar.
Sort of similar to accessibility, I guess, is getting the word out about yoga and mindfulness. And I noticed, like, I haven't done it yet, it's on my bucket list, is to go to like a puppy yoga class. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on those?
I've been to one. It was awesome. It was amazing. I've done puppy yoga. I've done goat yoga. I didn't get to go to the kitten. There was a kitten yoga, but I didn't get to go to that one. Puppy yoga was fun. You need to go somewhere where you don't have to worry about like the puppies peeing everywhere, because they just pee everywhere. Same with the goats. It's fun. I mean, very little yoga actually gets done, but it is really therapeutic. Just kind of sitting there and have all these puppies climb all over you. And we do a few poses, but yeah, back in Missouri, the teacher who actually trained me has hosted a puppy yoga and a goat yoga class, and it's pretty amazing. I highly recommend it. But yeah, wear clothes that, if you have to, just go home and throw them in the washing machine if you happen to get, peed on.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, it certainly looks adorable. I love seeing those online.
It truly is. It's worth doing. Absolutely. You'll love it.
Maybe not an every week occurrence for sure.
No, like I said, like not much yoga gets done. But yeah, actually, it would be a perfect thing for a beginner to do. If you are at all hesitant to try yoga, go to a puppy yoga class, because you're just going to play with puppies, and then maybe, get into a couple of poses, and then you're done. So good way to get started.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that would be a great way to like just reel people in, from an
Definitely.
advertising standpoint.
Yes, absolutely. Oh yeah, those classes fill. Oh yeah. Those classes fill for sure.
What other creative arts do you like to do for yourself, whether it's from a hobbyist standpoint or a more professional standpoint in terms of branching out in your career?
I'm a big fiber person, so I do a lot of knitting, crocheting. I love to knit sweaters. I don't do it so much now. The weather's getting warm. I don't do it as much, but yeah, I'm a big, huge knitter, crocheter. I would like to learn weaving someday. That's kind of on my next thing, going with the whole fiber arts. That would be kind of fun. I love music. I played piano as a kid. During COVID, I bought a guitar thinking I would learn to play guitar. Never happened, but I still have the guitar. So, I could still do that someday. That's about it. I think just, I like to use my hands. I think just sitting there, listening to podcasts, for example, sitting there knitting while I listen, or watching TV. It's just, I think it relieves stress. And then you have something to show for it when you're done. You have a sweater, or you have a scarf, or whatever it is. So those are my things.
I did knitting in college a little bit because everyone in my sorority was knitting, and I was like, oh, I'm going to try this. And I didn't get like any longer than a pot holder, but I recently picked up knitting on a loom.
Oh,
that's like way easier for me.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. Yeah, okay, good.
So, but it's really great. Like it relieves. It's like anxiety relieving.
Yes,
I was really surprised about that.
It definitely is, because it's something you can do with your hands. And, especially something like a scarf, you don't really have to think about what you're doing. You can just go, 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 change rows. And yeah, I agree. I think it definitely relieves anxiety. So what have you made on the loom?
Hats mostly.
Good. Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. Nice. Nice.
So it's getting warm now, so it's not like I can wear them, but it's good practice and it keeps me
Yeah.
from overthinking
Yes.
about life.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And those New York winters, the hats definitely come in handy, but no, you're right about that. It does help you not over, and it is I think it's a mindfulness thing too. Like you said before, just kind of being in the present and not thinking about, okay, I've got to go do 5 million things, but just sitting here and enjoying, listening to something while I knit. I think it's a good mindfulness activity.
If you didn't have any limitations for a project, what do you think you would do?
I think I would like to write fiction. I know you write. I know you're a fiction writer. I think that's something that I've always loved to do and just have never had. I mean, all the writing I've done has been academic writing, which I enjoy, and I like writing lesson plans, but fiction has always kind of grabbed my interest. So, but I've just never, I don't know if it's a self-confidence thing or just, I don't really know. Maybe I need to take a class or something, but just like how to structure a novel. I know what I like, but I've never really thought about what does that mean to do that for myself. So I think if I had the time, that would be something. Or maybe when I retire, maybe I'll write a book. Who knows?
It'll never be too late to do it. So.
True. That's true. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah.
Do you get summers off? I feel like that might be a good time to write a novel, right?
Yeah, so I usually teach in the summer in this where I'm teaching, and actually my job is I'll be leaving my current teaching position at the end of June. Yes, June. So I do teach during the summer a little bit, but yeah, summers for academics are definitely a little bit more low key, but that is the time when we're supposed to be working on our own research and our own scholarship. I mean, we're supposed to, but uh, not that I've been hugely successful at that for the past, I don't know how long, but yeah. So there's writing, obviously writing involved, but a different kind of writing. So, I mean, fun, but in a very, very different way. Not as therapeutic, I don't think.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah.
But yeah, so most academics do get some summer off.
Yeah. I was wondering, where is a place that you have yet to travel to that you would like to?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you've been feeling burned out, stressed, overwhelmed, or exhausted, the resources and courses at the Self-Care Institute are here to support you. The Self-Care Institute was founded by Dr. Ami Kunimura and provides support for individuals and organizations with burnout prevention, burnout recovery, and stress management. I've personally taken a few of these courses and found them to be super helpful, both professionally and personally. The care you give yourself matters just as much as the care you give to others. But if self-care is difficult for you, you're not alone. And the Self-Care Institute is here to support your well-being, resilience, and sense of fulfillment at work and at home. For more information, visit selfcareinstitute.com or go to the show notes and click on the link.
Wow, a lot of places. So my next adventure is I'm going to Bali next March on a yoga retreat, which will be amazing. So that's a part of the world that I have never really traveled to that I'd love to go to, just Asia in general, India, China, Japan, Korea. That's a part of the world I have not traveled to at all. So Bali will be my first sort of foray into Asia. And so maybe that will start a chain of travel in the future. But yeah, I love, and I don't speak any Asian languages, but that as a language teacher, maybe I can pick some up. But yeah, I'd really like to travel to Asia.
Nice. And where's one of the favorite places that you've traveled to?
Oh, I think Martinique. So in the Caribbean, Martinique is one of the French departments. So it's an overseas department of France. So it's actually part of France. So they use the euro and they speak French. is absolutely beautiful. I went there for a conference a long time ago. I loved it. I would love to go back there someday. The food was amazing. It was beautiful. I loved Martinique. And then, I mean, I love Europe. I've been all over Europe, but I also went to Canada, up in it's Saguenay, which is like 2 hours north of Quebec City. So total extreme climate, but it was great. I loved it. It's beautiful forests everywhere. The people were really friendly. So I think I really, maybe it's this extreme thing. I don't know. Go to a tropical climate, go to a, very cold climate. But yeah, those are two places, and they just happen to be on the same, in the same hemisphere or continent. Well, not really continent, but I don't know what I'm saying. They're not really. I guess you could say, yeah, that kind of in that zone. Yeah. I'm not a geography expert.
Yeah, no, I remember taking geography in high school, and I don't know how I passed. A miracle.
Yeah, it's good to know. Good to know, but yeah, it's tough.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you're going to go on a yoga retreat. That sounds like it's going to be really, really fun.
It is. It is. It will be. So we'll get up and probably have some meditation time, do yoga in the morning, and then it sounds like we'll have a fair amount of time, to ourselves to visit. But then there will be more yoga in the evening. It's going to be all vegetarian food. It sounds amazing. This is the yoga studio that I trained at in Missouri. So my yoga guru is organizing this. So I'm excited to hang out with my old yoga family.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned earlier that you're taking a course, and what was it called again?
Ayurveda.
Mm-hmm. What is one of the sectors of Ayurveda that you're most curious about?
I think for me right now, I'd say in my life, I'm working on I've been on thyroid medication since I was in my 20s. And a lot of women are on thyroid medication. And through Ayurveda, there's a way to get off the medication. So I'm working on that right now. I'm working on getting off of all my medications, which I think would be amazing, not to have to be on any medications. So there's diet is a big component, but also things like daily meditation. And there's something that we do called Abhyanga, which every morning you massage oil all over yourself. So you give yourself a little massage and then you go meditate. So I think for me, I think that's fascinating. Being able to get, because when I went on thyroid medication in my 20s, they told me I'm going to be on this medication for the rest of my life. That's just the way it is. But now that I'm learning that there are other ways, there are ways to actually not have to be on this medication for the rest of my life. And that's something I never even imagined. So that's really the part of it right now that's fascinating me.
I'm also fascinated by how people can use natural resources and the world around them, holistically to make themselves feel better, to have themselves be healthier in a movement, mindfulness, and what you put in your body,
Absolutely. And I think with Ayurveda, the difference is that we know what's best for us deep down. And the Western medical model is that, something's wrong with you, you go to a doctor and the doctor gives you a prescription and that fixes it. But there's still the underlying cause. So Ayurveda gets at that cause. So, what's causing your heartburn or, your digestive issues? Look at your diet, look at your stress levels, all of that plays a part. So it like you said, it is very holistic, and, the mind is very important for the, the body and what happens to the body and vice versa. Pretty interesting stuff.
It really is. It really is. I've not been to a yoga class before, but I'm curious, is the music selection, how is that done? Are there like specific yoga CDs, or does it depend on the guru in the studio, or do people bring in like whatever they like and people take turns sharing their music, or how is that?
I think it could work a lot of different ways. In my experience, the teacher picks music. So I have a bunch of Spotify playlists that I like, mostly from I've created one of my own, but I mostly just find playlists that I really like. Some teachers like to use music with words. Some don't. I tend not to. I think using music with words can be distracting sometimes. And obviously, and the type of music too. I mean, I've been to yoga classes where they play very upbeat kind of music, and then other classes where it's very much more like sort of ambient, very calm, peaceful music. So I think it depends on the instructor. It depends on who's in your class. But for me, I tend to gravitate towards Spotify playlists that are pretty mellow, pretty music that's nice to listen to. But yeah, I tend not to use music with words.
That makes a lot of sense. And in music therapy, we have things called environmental music and environmental music therapy, where the actual music itself, is created live, and we react to the environment and we help change the environment and help, like the mood and the tone and the timbre of the environment with music. Have you ever paired up with a music therapist to do like a live yoga? I think that'd be really cool.
Let's do it. That'd be amazing. Let's do it. I think that environmental music sounds amazing. I mean, that sounds like it would be perfect. But no, that would be so much fun. That would be so much fun to pair up with a music therapist and come up with some really cool yoga playlists.
Yeah. I did something similar when I worked in the schools, and I paired with an occupational therapist who was also a yoga instructor, and we did mindful movement with youngsters, and I played live music, and it was just so impactful.
I love that. I can't even imagine going to a yoga class with live music. That would be amazing. That would be so amazing, because that whole energy, just the energy would be so powerful.
And then it changes, like you can change it on a dime, versus like a playlist, which is great. Like not everyone can be like, all right, let's go, bring in the band, so obviously having playlists is very, very helpful, but I feel like that'd be a really cool pairing across the world, like yoga instructors and music therapists in harmony,
I love it. I think that's a great idea. I think you need to start a movement.
There we go. And then add puppies to the mix. It'd be a party.
Then puppies, yes. Maybe some goats. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, goodness.
Amazing.
Couple more questions for you. If you could travel back in time, where would you want to go and at what time period?
Wow. I ask my students this question when I teach a French history class, and I ask them this very same question on their final exam. Like, if you could go back and live in France at any time period, which would it be? But, I've never thought about it myself. So, which is interesting. I definitely wouldn't want to be a peasant. That would be tough. I mean, I think
Thanks for listening to Creative Piecemeal. We hope today's episode left you feeling inspired. This podcast is independently created and produced by the host, Tammy Takaishi. More details about today's guest can be found in the show notes, along with links to the podcast's socials, merch store, and ways to support arts organizations AHA Broadway and New Normal Rep, both near and dear to Tammy's heart. Don't forget to visit creativepiecemeal.com, the official podcast website, where you can leave fan mail, write a review, explore Tammy's blog, and discover the growing collection of episodes. Special thanks to our audio engineer, Alex Repetti. Additional narration by Dante Jace. Let's keep celebrating creativity in all its forms.